Here's a quick one about a young gal. She's 19, recently joined the workforce, and is throwing a giant fit and complaining because the men she worked with, all of them, are avoiding her in the workplace. They don't want to be in an environment where it's just him and her and nobody else is around for obvious reasons. And now she thinks it's wrong and is complaining to Reddit and all this and blah, 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 blah. And this shows what happens. This is the reaction it's going to be after years of the M2 movement, where guys that have done nothing can be accused of this, and this, and lose their jobs. In some cases, maybe actually end up behind bars. It's just a terrible situation. And guys are like, okay, then I'm not going to mentor or be alone with or anything like that. And of course, this all started because guys in the past were scumbags, and there were, we all know this, that did and said a lot of things that were very, very wrong. And now that's had this ripple effect. It's just an absolute mess. Title: Why do men not want to be alone with a woman in the workplace? She says here, I work in technology field with a majority of men in my office. I'm only 19, while all the other men are 30 plus, married and have kids. Most of them see me as a daughter or a little sister figure. I've worked there on and off since I was 16 years old. Well, it's interesting. She's 19. She's like one of the only girls, and the rest are all older. We have an office and then sites that provide support as well. So we have 2 cedar vans that the employees use to drive us to the sites. Only certain positions are assigned to the vans, none of which are women. Well, I was assigned as a lead for a project that we started at the sites, and given other employees assigned to me to help. I specifically asked my boss if I had to drive to the sites in my personal vehicle, and I was told that I would catch a ride with my assigned helper in the van. All the helpers were in the positions that have a van. The past 2 days, while we've been working on the projects, I've coincidentally caught a ride in personal vehicles with other project leaders who were women. How interesting. The guys are in the vans together, the women are in the vans together. Why? Because if it's her and another dude in the van, even though obviously nothing's going on, the men feel uncomfortable in that situation because, as you can imagine, just the 2 of them, darn well in this world, it'll be her word against his, whether something happened or not. And you hear stories all the time when things are said that happen, whether it happened or not. And who's the one that's not believed, right? It's sad, it's screwed up, but it is what it is. At the end of the project today, though, the women either were driving straight home or had to leave early for the meetings. I was then stuck with riding with one of the helpers back to the office, which I didn't see as an issue. I work closely with one of them, and I have ridden with him all the time, so I'm used to it. It came around time for everyone to get off work, so I started asking who could I ride back to the office with. All the men in the room, except for the one I ride with often, said no, including my assigned helper that I was told to catch a ride with. Yeah, there you go. These are all, she said, men in their 30s, married, kids. They're not taking the chance. This goes to show you more men have become aware of the reality. Think about a guy in his 30s, and I'm assuming she's at least average looking, if not above average girl. Him with, it's just, you can see where the problem's going to occur. And even if she's the nicest girl in the world, there's no BS whatsoever, still, these guys aren't taking chances, and you can't blame them. The reason was because they didn't want to be alone with a woman. They said they wouldn't care if the vans could hold 3 people so that another male could ride. Okay, we'll do it, but there's another witness here. Do they think this because they are SEX-utilizing me? I'm young enough to be most of their daughters. Why does my SEX mean that we can't behave professionally alone in a van? Because the world's changed, that's why. Yeah, I get you're fed up with this whole thing, and maybe she would never do such a thing. But still, plenty have, and guys' lives have been ruined for this. I live in a very conservative state. There was actually a relatively big news story recently about one of our congressmen refusing to be alone with a female reporter. I can't believe that so many men actually believe that this type of thing happens. I never experienced this type of open sexism, let alone in my workplace with people I consider my friends and mentors. So before I read the comments, again, this is what happens after a number of years where men who did nothing were accused and had their lives ruined. At best, their careers ruined, but then their own personal lives in terms of their marriages with kids, and some even going to the slammer, okay? And again, there have been and are men that are scumbags that have put their hands on and done a lot of things that definitely they deserve to be fired, but that's a small number compared to the guys that would never do such a thing. And now, and you all know darn well after M2 really came around, I got speaking code here, M2, figured out what that fucking means. If you don't know what it means, they, once that started about, you had these gals that felt like they've been wrong for so long, they were just looking for trouble. And it happened. It really did. There stories pop up about guys that things were said, and then later on it got out that the girl made it up, or it was proven that she made it up. It's terrible. And so you can't blame guys for saying, shh, nope. Hey, I like you as a person, you do a good job, but I'm not going to be alone in a car, a vehicle, in a private office. Not happening, because I can't get that. Can't allow it to happen. I know a girl who not too long ago complained because guys wouldn't shake her hand in the workplace. I kid you not, And I said, well, I think I know what it's about. And she's like, F you. She knows what I do for a living, So you can't blame these guys, and this is how things are going to go. As long as guys can just aren't being believed and immediately demonized as the bad guys, this is what you're going to get. So it's like, unfortunately, be careful what you wish for. So it is what it is. But I'm going to read some comments here. One guy says here, it is to save their butt in the event of literally any number of outcomes where you could file claims, allegations, etc. For instance, saying, I've never been alone with her. How the F could I have done anything? Men are scared. Even acquitted reports and charges F up someone's life entirely. If he has kids and a wife, there's literally no reason for him to risk it at all. Better safe than sorry. Exactly. End of story. Another guy says here, I'm a man who works in the technology field, and for the most part, it's just fear of being accused. I also know women who don't want to be alone with a man in the office. That's more out of fear than danger. I think it's more of being careful, and it's not related to you, and it's personally. Yeah, this isn't personal. That's the thing I should have mentioned early on, which she's not getting. And she's 19, she's young. It's not personal. But I think because she started working there at 16, and she felt like she's friendly with them, and they know her, that they shouldn't be acting this way. It's not personal. They got too much to risk. Another guy says here, they're trying to protect themselves, especially if they're in a position of authority over you, worried about what accusations could do to one's career. It wasn't always that way. However, it's common in my old job for new saleswomen to ride on a delivery truck to see what the delivery team does every day. That practice ended very shortly after the M2 movement. See? And one more, he says, a man here, and I'm working in office as well. Although I 100% trust my female coworkers in my case, I suspect they simply don't want to be risking a false accusation of S-word harassment or something like that, even if you don't even have the thought of doing that in the first place. I think it's partly due to the fact that women are usually believed more often in those cases. More often? Are you kidding me? How about all the time? Let's be honest here. I.e., a man accused a gal of harassing him, and most likely it'd be ignored and even ridiculed, at least here where I live. And last one, guy says, I can't speak for them, but in a very conservative state, it might be a matter of propriety. I live in a semi-rural part of northern Florida, and among older people is a given rule that married people should avoid riding with people of the opposite sex. There you go. You had a whole bunch of guys on there. They weren't being nasty. They weren't being rude. They were laying out reality. So there you go. And again, it's not personal against her. She could be cool and nice and being... Really, that's who she is. Guys aren't taking the chances, and you cannot blame them. And again, this whole M2 movement did start because there were a lot of scumbags out there that did a lot of awful shit. I mean, come on here. We all have sisters and nieces and moms and grandmas or girlfriends and wives, and we wouldn't want that to happen to them, really. But the problem is those assholes, what they did led to M2, and then the gals overreacted, and then innocent guys didn't do anything, have things being accused of this, accused of that, and it's just this is the reality now. So this is how things are going to be for a long time until at least it gets to a point where, guess what, men are pretty much not guilty until proven guilty. That's how things are going to be. So it is what it is. But at the end of the day, the workplace is for two reasons: earn a paycheck, build your career. That's it. And you just have to watch yourself. End of story. And you cannot blame guys going forward until things start being a little more fair towards guys. End of story.